Imagine serving under a commander so lazy, so arrogant, and so absent that his own men decided to erase him from existence, literally. This is the story of how an entire company turned against their leader, and how one 4-day weekend of revenge ended a career. Act I, setting the scene. It was Fort Drake, a sprawling army installation tucked between pine forests and endless mud roads. I was the executive officer, XO, of Bravo Company, 2nd Battalion. Across the hall, in the very same building, sat Charlie Company. Their XO was a buddy of mine, Lieutenant Eric Collins. Now, every army company has its ups and downs. But Charlie Company had a problem far worse than low morale or bad chow. Their problem was Captain Gregory Mason, their company commander. Greg Mason was a nightmare. On paper, he was everything an officer shouldn't be: arrogant, rude, condescending, and worst of all, lazy. He blamed his soldiers when things went wrong, dodged responsibility, and conveniently disappeared whenever it was time to do real work. The man had a talent, not for leading, but for avoiding every ounce of accountability. Act 2, the breaking point. At first, Lieutenant Collins tried to cover for him. So did First Sergeant Ramirez, a seasoned NCO who had 20 years in uniform. They both knew that if the commander failed, the entire company looked bad. But after a while, Mason's absences became impossible to ignore. He didn't show up again. I asked one morning, catching Collins outside the duty office. Eric sighed. "Day for in a row. First Sergeant and I are running the whole show. Training schedules, supply, counseling packets, everything. He's either at home or God knows where." And then it got worse. 1 week stretched into nearly 2 full weeks without Captain Mason showing his face. No calls. No explanations. Just silence. Rumors started flying around battalion. Soldiers whispered that Mason had quit without resigning. Others joked he'd gone into witness protection. But those inside Charlie Company weren't laughing. They were furious. One evening, after a 12-hour day, Collins vented in my office. His voice was low but sharp. "I can't do this anymore, man. He's killing us. And the worst part? When he does come back, he'll take credit for everything." First Sergeant Ramirez leaned in, his gravelly voice cutting the air. "Then maybe it's time we teach him a lesson." Act 3, the plan. That Friday before a long 4-day weekend, Collins and Ramirez hatched the kind of plan that only true frustration and a soldier's creativity could inspire. The battalion building had 4 companies sharing one long, sterile hallway lined with offices. Mason's door sat halfway down, next to supply and administration. It was plain, white, and always shut, a fitting symbol for a man who never bothered to open it. "We're going to erase him," Ramirez said with a grin. "Erase him?" Collins asked. Ramirez said with a grin. "Erase him?" Collins asked. "Yeah. We're going to wall him off. If he doesn't want to exist in this company, then he won't. Not even a door. Just a wall." Collins hesitated. "You're serious?" "Dead serious." And so, armed with sheet track, spackle, paint rollers, and the sheer determination only soldiers on a long weekend can muster, they set to work. Act 4, the execution. Friday evening, once the building was empty, they began. First came the frame, wooden studs hammered quietly into place. Then the drywall, cut and mounted until the doorway disappeared. By Saturday afternoon, the door was no more, just a seamless stretch of blank wall. Ramirez, hands on his hips, surveyed the work. Not bad for a couple amateurs. Collins smirked. "We're not done yet." For 2 more days, they worked. They patched every seam, smoothed the plaster, and rolled fresh coats of paint along the entire corridor so no one would notice the difference. The hallway gleamed by the time they finished, as though it had always been that way. By Monday night, Captain Mason's office door, his last symbol of authority, had been erased from the world. Act V, the confrontation. Tuesday morning. The battalion building hummed with activity. Soldiers shuffled papers, phones rang, typewriters clacked. And then Mason arrived. He strutted into the hallway like he owned the place, coffee in hand, ready to reclaim his throne after nearly 2 weeks of absence. He walked to where his office should have been, and stopped dead. There was no door. Just wall. Smooth, clean, freshly painted wall. He blinked. Stared. Looked up and down the hallway, bewildered. Where's my office? Specialist Green from Supply walked by, not even glancing at him. What office, sir? Mason frowned. My office. Right here. This is supposed to be my office. Private Jenkins passed with a stack of folders. Never seen a door there, sir. Mason's voice rose. Don't mess with me. There was a door here. He slapped the wall, palm smacking drywall. This is MY office. Collins and Ramirez appeared at the far end of the hall, hiding grins. Sir, Collins said calmly, are you feeling all right? Mason's face turned red. Don't play dumb. My office is right here. But the soldiers, every single one of them, acted confused. They shrugged, shook their heads, muttered things like never seen him before or who's that guy yelling. It was as if Captain Mason had been erased from existence. Act 6, The Fallout. By noon, the battalion commander, Colonel Anders, had heard the commotion. He stormed into the hallway, eyes blazing. Mason, in my office. Now. Except Mason didn't have an office. That irony wasn't lost on anyone. Behind closed doors, voices rose. Mason tried to explain, tried to justify 2 weeks of absence, tried to claim his soldiers had turned against him. But Colonel Anders wasn't having it. Word of Mason's laziness, his absence, and now his hallway outburst had spread like wildfire. By the end of the day, the order came down. Captain Gregory Mason was relieved of command. Act 7, Aftermath. Charlie Company moved forward, free of their toxic leader. Morale skyrocketed. Training improved. Soldiers finally felt respected again. As for Mason, his career never recovered. Rumor had it he was shuffled to some dead-end desk job before eventually resigning his commission altogether. And the wall? It stayed there, smooth and perfect, as a silent monument to one commander's downfall. In the army, respect is earned, not demanded. Captain Mason thought rank gave him authority, but in the end, it was his absence that defined him. His soldiers didn't just replace him, they erased him. And that, ladies and gentlemen, is how one company turned their commander's laziness into his ultimate undoing.
Tell a story of sweet goodbyes. It's a heavy weight, this promise I keep. A silent watch while the whole world sleeps. I stand on the edge where the red sun bleeds against the tide of 1,000 needs. Not for a medal, not for the praise, just for the faces in a coming haze. The line in the sand, steel in my hand. For the last of my brothers, I'll take a stand. The fear's a ghost that I know too well, a silent echo in a living hell. But there's a fire in a place unseen, a shield for the sacred, a light serene. So let the storm break, let the thunder roll. I'll pay the price to keep the soul of a nation, of a family, of a man. fight till the last beat of this human